Hi, my name is Ishmael and today we're going to be talking about the reason why you would invest in a house over a flat. What are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and why I would personally go for one over the other. So, first off, houses and flats. Why I am distinguishing them is because generally when you buy a house, you're buying a house with a freehold. Now what is a freehold is very important. A freehold means that when you buy the house, you are buying the house with the land it's sitting on. So you own the land, you own the house, and the only person who owns it above you is the Queen of England, and obviously there's the Crown who owns everything. But let's take the Crown out of this to make this video a bit simpler. So, when you buy a house, you normally buy a freehold house. There are some leasehold houses in the UK, especially there's quite a few in Wales, so you want to keep an eye out. But when you buy a house, you buy a freehold. Now the reason you want to buy the freehold is because then you own the property. The other option is when you buy a house and you buy a leasehold. Now a leasehold means effectively you've paid rent in advance for the next X amount of years. Now leaseholds are normally anywhere between 90 years and 999 years, which means that you've paid rent for that period of time. Now when you are looking at a mortgage, if you are getting a mortgage, when you start getting below 80 and 70 years, mortgages become difficult and expensive, and some lenders won't touch properties with under 80 years. Others will go down to 70, some will go 35 years beyond the end of the mortgage term. It varies on company to company, and that changes on a regular basis with the current climate in the mortgage industry. So, why the leasehold? Well, the leasehold means that the person who owns the land that you're renting the land off, and you're renting the house off, they are owed a rent. Now generally in houses this doesn't happen, but it has, and that means that you have to pay them ground rent. So you have to pay them rent to own the land, on top of the fact that you've paid them the rent to rent the building for a long period of time. This also sometimes means that there are service charges, so they might charge you to rent the land, not only the ground rent, which means that you're renting the land, but they might charge you service charges such as they maintain the hedges, they maintain the garden, and these are extra fees, but you have to pay them because it's part of the lease agreement, the leasehold agreement, which is effectively you buying a house under a leasehold. Now, generally, when you are talking about houses, you don't get leasehold houses. Generally, houses are freehold and flats are leasehold. So this is why I'm talking about leasehold and freehold. Because when you go to the leasehold and you go to a flat, now you can't buy the land the flat sits on. Because if you have one flat here and one flat above and you buy the land underneath, then you can't be buying the land if there's a flat between you. If you're the upstairs, you can't buy the land underneath the downstairs. And if you're the downstairs, you can't buy the land underneath. Because anything above that land is in theory yours, which wouldn't work. So they make flats leasehold. Now a leasehold flat means that you rent the flat for a given period of time. Normally in flats, not always, there's a communal area. So it depends how big a block is, but you might have one entrance and then it splits off into two flats. Now if you have one entrance and it splits off into two flats, then the communal area, the freeholder, the person who owns the land, is the person who is responsible for maintaining that area, the shared area. And the area that is in each individual flat is then yours. Now the thing about a leasehold on top of this is that with a leasehold, if you want to do any changes to the structure of the building, so you want to move a wall, you want to open a kitchen diner up or anything like that, you can't do that without permission from the person who actually owns the land. So these are various reasons why you wouldn't do that. Now when you're doing a flat, if you get a flat you've got, or if you get a leasehold property, you've got ground rent and you've got service charge. So if you're looking at it from an investment point of view or owning, you've got to take into consideration the fact that you've got to pay these extra fees, which you don't have if you buy a freehold. Now these extra fees can vary depending on where you are, and they can vary massively. But let's take into consideration one area. But even in one area, you could be looking at fees anything from £40 a month to £120 a month in the same area. Now if you talk about London, you could be talking about £300–400 a month. On top of that, when your lease drops below the 80-year mark, then you actually have to pay a considerable sum to increase your lease. Now that's called a marriage fee, and that's something to be discussed in another video, but that is something that you would have to pay significant fees if you are deciding to extend your lease. There's various things you can look at to reduce these and various ways of calculating these, but again, lots of things to consider. So, why would I go for a freehold over a leasehold? Well, the fees, because the fees can change based on the maintenance cost. So for example, if you're in a block of flats and they decide to do a roof repair and they find that the fee hasn't actually built up enough to cover the roof repair, they're going to increase the fee over time. And so I was looking at purchasing a property. The property fee was £40, but then because they were just doing repairs, by the time I was halfway through the purchase, they had actually said that the service charge fee was actually going up from £40 to £65 a month. Now, it was just going up, so it was unlikely to go up again, but after seeing that, I reconsidered. Do I really want to own a property where overnight they can increase my costs by £20 a month? Might not sound a lot, but when the rent is £500 and you've got mortgages, you've got bills and this and that and the other coming out of it, £20 can be a significant amount of your profit in percentage. And it worked out to around about 12% of my profit. So I decided not to go ahead with this, and this is one of the reasons why I would stick to freehold properties over leasehold properties and stay to houses over flats. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, whack that bell notification icon to get notified of videos coming out each and every week. And don't forget to share this with your friends to make sure everyone is informed in the property industry.